Now, the Top Employers Institute is a global certifier in identifying the world's best employers. The final rankings for the 2019 global certification are in, and South African tech companies have been amongst the top runners. At the top of the South Africa's employers list is Nestle, and the best in Africa goes to Ghana's Unilever. In the studio, to try to tell me more, let me introduce them. Beginning on my far right, David Plink, Top Employers Institute, the CEO. Mechell Chetty is in between. She is Unilever HR Vice President for Africa. And David Moloto, Human Resources Director for Nestle, East and Southern Africa, sits next to me. Let's begin at the top with you, David. I think for a lot of people, perhaps just to understand, when you say a top employer, what does it mean? What do you refer to? What are you evaluating?
A top employer means an employer that takes the optimal care for its people, making sure that the conditions are in place for their people to develop, ensuring that they enrich their world of work, right, and making sure that they become the best workplace they can be.
How long do you run this survey?
In total, we've been doing this for over 25 years, here in Africa since 1997, so we've been around for a while.
What are the key things that you look for amongst it? Because I see you've got over 100 questions here.
That's correct. 100 questions in which we look at about 650 best practices. Sure. And they're ranging from various topics. So we look at talent strategy, we look at onboarding, learning and development, culture, a very important one, compensation and benefits. So everything that has to do with giving the people the best opportunities to develop.
Right. And when you look at the results of this survey for 2019, just take me through some of the things that you found interesting.
Well, you see these days, and that's something we also met on yesterday with a group of top employers here in Johannesburg, is there's a lot more agility in HR. So where agility started in software development, shorter cycles, more broken down projects, we also see that happening, for instance, in performance management, which is a far more agile process these days than a few years ago. We see that in learning and development. So that's something we truly see around the world and also here in Africa.
Yeah. Mechell, you must be pretty pleased.
Yes, we are really thrilled to have the #1 top employer for Africa now for the 4th time.
Yeah. And what would you attribute the recognition that you have been able to get to?
Well, firstly, Unilever is a very, very responsible company. We have over 400 brands, and our brands touch the lives of most of our communities. And so I think the first thing is that we have a sustainable living plan as our business model, right, and we want to do good through our brands. So I think that does differentiate us. I think one of the things that we've tried to do with our employees is bring purpose into everything they do.
Right.
So we go beyond what you have to do in your daily job and how you do it to why you do it.
Interesting, because how important are brands in attracting the best talent? I've always often wondered about that. I mean, would I go and work for Coca-Cola because I like Coke Zero?
Yeah, it depends what the brand stands for.
Sure.
And we're finding more and more, particularly younger talent, want to be associated with brands that are responsible. You know, we have brands that look after health and hygiene, nutrition, and they want to know what the purpose of the brand is in order to be associated with it. So that is definitely an attractive mechanism for talent.
Yeah, I'm going to come back to you and ask you to talk about the agility that David was referring to earlier, but let's bring in the other David. David, congratulations to yourselves.
Thank you.
From your perspective, what do you think they like most about your company and your practices?
They like who we stand for. You know, we are all about enhancing quality of life of people and contributing to a healthier future. You know, we know that this level of recognition helps us to contribute to the country and to the continent by giving more people chance, by giving more people hope, insofar as attracting them to our company, insofar as giving them developmental opportunities for them to fend for their family.
How difficult is it to do that, though?
You know, it's quite challenging. When you look at our economy and macroeconomy in South Africa in particular, there's a bit of challenge insofar as really increasing recruitment, etc. However, as a company, our standpoint is that to contribute to this society, we are looking at ways and innovative ways of making sure we give, in particular, young people a chance.
Right.
As you know, 1 in 4 people today are not employed, and they are looking for that hope. And some of the things that we're doing in terms of our youth programs, in terms of our graduate programs, in terms of our partnership with our suppliers in the value chain, gives us an opportunity to really make that possible.
Yeah. call me a cynic, but I've often thought, you know, in Africa, employers must be, you know, among some of the more, how should I put it? I'm trying to be careful here. Lazier people, if you like, because you've got huge unemployment and a huge pool of talent. So it must be easy to pluck it and pack it into your businesses.
You know, you can look at it from a number of different perspectives. It depends what the type of skills you're looking for. It is true that we've got talent within our country. It's true that there's talent in Africa. It is the ability to match that talent with the opportunities that we have in our organization. That is why we believe that putting young graduates, interns, even in tough economic times, is crucial to tackle this rising and continuous scourge of unemployment.
Absolutely. You want to come in?
Yes, I would like to add to that. I think, you know, the times of organizations thinking that they can solve everything for themselves has probably come to an end. We need to think about collaboration. We need to think about partnerships. Because on our own, we're not going to be able to create jobs. But if we look at the partnerships and we extend you know, an invitation to those that we work with and say, let's come together on a common goal, I think we have a better chance of solving unemployment on the continent.
So David, I've got two manufacturing companies here that won in South Africa, in Africa. When you look at the companies that you surveyed and then that they participated in the survey, do you find the dominance of one particular sector, or it really doesn't matter?
No, it doesn't really matter. You see companies from professional services, financial services, manufacturing, indeed, fast.
This was a coincidence.
It is actually. Well, it's not a coincidence that they've been certified at this level, because that's something we've seen in both organizations for many years. So that I wouldn't call it a coincidence, but the fact that we're here together with two HR leaders from companies in the same sector is a coincidence.
The perception is that, you know, when you work for a tech company, you work for a really, like, you know, satisfying environment. I mean, we have all heard about the stories about how Google is, I think, one of the best employers in the world and that kind of thing. Is that true? Is that something borne out by what you see in your survey?
What we see is that the companies that we survey, that we assess their policies of, we see that they are taking the best care of their people. And Google is more visual in that, and they have their slides, and they have their free bagels and free smoothies. But in the end of the day, the most important thing is to offer people opportunities to develop. And the rest is, just an extra. And it's not going to define whether you're going to be having the best employee experience. That is really more associated with the actual development that you're going through.
One of the things I noted about the results of your survey is the dominance of foreign companies. Does it mean that African-grown companies, African champions, are unable to compete with these big fellas coming from abroad?
But we focus on multinational companies. So in our certification, which we apply around the world.
Does it include local companies?
It does include local companies. We see them here in Africa. We see them all around the world. So we have local champions just as much as we have international companies. But the multinational companies do tend to be overrepresented because they would like to harmonize their policies, align their policies across the globe, and as such participate in a program like ours.
And we can call it, they've got international best practice, right?
Yes, and that's something that local companies can and do learn from, yes.
Mechell, I see you itching to come in.
Yes, so we do leverage our global practices, and I think that's
it's not a criticism, by the way.
I actually think it's an important point, because actually the good thing is that we do always have an international standard, and there have been many occasions where Africa set the standard. So, for example, something that differentiates us in Africa is Ubuntu and purpose. And we can teach our global community a lot more about purpose. Yes, absolutely. So the work that we've done and how we've interpreted purpose and bringing it into the workplace, connecting people to their purpose, is certainly something that's being talked of in my community globally within Unilever.
Maybe if I could add on that, maybe with an example of how we put that to life, because it's important to translate it. And like Unilever, I think we do the same, and I think some local companies are doing the same. We've got an international exchange and expatriation. We believe in exposure. And what we're doing at any given time, we've got quite a number of our talent from South Africa working somewhere else in the world. We believe this is very important for exposure. We believe this is very important to get even more people, because the world, we know, is a global commonplace. And in reality, by doing that, more and more, as Mechell has spoken about digital and agility, more and more, we're going to find that together we are leveraging others, and more we're going to find that we'll need even more people who could see things from many different perspectives.
Absolutely. You're setting them up for my next question around diversity.
Yes.
How important is it? Let's begin with you, and then we get to Mechell.
Diversity and inclusion for us
We've heard very often in the past that it's key, blah, blah, it adds all a lot of these things. Come on, you guys are the practitioners.
For us, it's absolutely critical. And it's so resonating in the translation of our purpose and values.
Why is it important?
It's important because who we stand for as a company, our overall values are rooted in respect. And in there, one of the things that we articulate very clearly is the whole thing of diversity or respecting others' diversity. In South Africa in particular, we've got a compliance angle of diversity. It's very important to redress the inequalities of the past. But we take it further because in reality what is important, we're appreciating diversity of thought, we're appreciating diversity of application, preference, food taste, which fits very well in our value chain. And with that, I think we become a competitive organization. And it's not a program. I think it's important. I mean, in our company, at Nestle, I think some of us are very fortunate to work in companies like that because it's part of the DNA. It's not like a tick box every single day. And it doesn't mean there's no challenges. We do have challenges, but it is really making sure the appreciation of who we are, the respect of who we are, and caring for each other is something that we put ahead.
It's certainly shining. I can see it. I can hear it in your voice. Mechell, you want to come in?
Diversity for us starts by knowing that our consumers are diverse. So that's where it starts. And we have to understand the business context.
Can someone tell that message to a certain president of a certain country, another part of the world, please?
So, and because our consumers are diverse, we must ensure that our workforce is diverse. Because how do we represent our consumers? And then, of course, when you have a diverse workforce, you can talk about inclusion. You cannot talk about inclusion if you don't have representation. So I think the two go hand in hand. You have to measure representation before you talk about the glorious work of inclusion. And we talk a lot about, in the workplace, having comfort, so being able to be included, but also access. Do you have the same tools to be successful? And I think that's a platform that we're trying to do that. The last thing that I'm absolutely passionate about, and it's my purpose, is building African leaders for Africa. Allowing our African talent to solve for Africa's challenges and to recognize Africa's opportunities.
I wish we had more time because I was going to challenge you and try to find out from you whether it is difficult to find those African champions who are able to get these things going. But we do not have time because I need to get David into the conversation, one on diversity and how important it is in the overall ranking when you look at how companies implement diversity and in terms of also just what you find when you get your questions in.
Yeah, the way we look at this is part of culture, and it's really driven by the employees because on the one end you have the necessity to link it to compliance, you have the necessity to link it to your customers, but it's also driven by employees. People want to work in a diverse workplace, and they're not going to work if it is not diverse. So what we see is that drive from within that necessitates that focus. And for us, it's captured within our methodology, and we look at that at a deep level.
How big a weighting does it have?
That's kind of under the hood, so we can't give the exact weighting. But culture as a whole, so we have 10 topics. Culture as a whole, and that diversity is part of that. It's 25% of our weighting. So,
so you looked at how many organizations? 209 organizations in Africa registering to participate in this program this year. 195 organizations, 31 African countries, 23 industry sectors. There were some amongst those that did not score very well. Sum up for us, if you can, the things where they struggled.
It varies from company to company. So you see in the level of maturity in HR, they have various challenges that differ from one company to another. What unites these companies that have participated but not qualified eventually as a top employer is that they have the same drive to develop their people and to become a better organization. So I think there's more that unites them than that differentiates them.
Anyone wants to come in?
So I would just say that there continues to be challenges, and the reason there's always going to be people challenges, and we can never be complacent about it, is that the world is shifting very rapidly.
I was actually going to ask you something that you also struggle with, because we do know, of course, maturity means cost to some extent in some instances.
So I mean the idea of, for example, learning and development, the way we used to learn, classroom-based learning that took time, you know, the way the world is speeding up and innovation is happening, we have to find agile ways of learning. So every single people practice is coming under review now for us to adapt to the new way of working.
And equally, to add on what Mechell has said, you know, leveraging also technologies in the era of digital, where be it learning, be it performance management, be it compensation.
There's one big topic flying off right
there. Really, how do you make sure, and how could we have switched on demand using these technologies to ensure that, you know, our people access that learning faster? And it's something that I think as companies we're beginning to figure out. But, you know, with some of the challenges that we have locally back at home, we have to focus on, you know, some of our people tell us about data, but, you know, and some of the people talk about bandwidth, etc. But that's not the point. The point is, how do we create and how do we empower, how do we create opportunities for those to be able to access learning like we are able to in company.
100%. My two Davids, thank you.
Thank you.
Mechell, thank you for coming. Thanks very much indeed for joining us.